what is happiness? That's a question he posed. Happiness is the very nature of the self. Happiness and the self are not different. There is no happiness in any object of the world. We imagine through our ignorance that we derive happiness from objects. Because we believe we are an object, so if we get what we want, the absence of desire leaves the substratum, the self, which is happiness itself. And everyone experiences the happiness from within. So they never derive happiness from an object. Even if there would be happiness in an object, how would you derive it to you? So we desire the objects of the world because we are confused and we think that we're going to be happy due to the objects of the world. Yet if we look very carefully what we experience discontent, we experience frustration, we experience lack, because if I want something, means I don't have something. And when I want, that means is that I'm not fully content, because there is a desire. Only when the desire subsides, I experience a fullness, I experience contentment, I experience peace. I can have a glimpse of happiness. The thing is, because it's going out, and it's due to something external, when I get what I want and the desire rests, now it's a matter how long until I want something new and else. So now it's a matter, I get what I want, now a matter of time until the mind reacts, so it desires something. So it's never gonna rest, never ever. The only time it rests, so it realizes that what it is desire is the self. And then once it's direct itself, it starts to rest in the self and not wanting to come out, because when it comes out, it recognizes it experiences pain, frustration, discontent, suffering. So it starts to want to return and rest within the self. And this is how it learns to be rooted in it until eventually it never comes out. So we would understand why it would only rest when it comes back to awareness, and it would never stop when it goes out to the objects of the world.
So actually, when you are rooted in the self, the peace and happiness actually is the bliss.
Is your nature, yes.
It's not like, oh, well, I feel all these fantastic
No,
things.
it has nothing to that, even not close to that. This is just imaginary experience of happiness.
So we imagine the word bliss to mean something
Totally different.
Yes.
So basically, it's beyond anything the mind can even imagine. So it is so vast because the imagination is just a tiny aspect within the vastness of awareness. This is why when I live identifying with the thought, I live in such a tiny aspect of the world. When I live resting or being awareness itself, I live as infinite, vast, no boundaries, eternal.
That's why all objects, everything you see, gives you happiness. The same happiness. The box of napkins give you as much happiness as the table. Everything gives you equally the same happiness. So what do you need? You need nothing. Everything gives you happiness.
Nothing really gives you happiness other than you are that happiness.
But that's what's happening all the time within the object. And once you recognize that there is no more need for anything because you are awareness. But you
cannot add anything to it.
You cannot add anything.
And you cannot take anything out of it.
That's why the table is the same as the box.
And complete. So it starts, we go back, Happiness is the very nature of the self. Happiness and self are not different. There is no happiness in any object of the world. We imagine through our ignorance, forgetting who we are, that we derive happiness from objects. When the mind goes out, it experiences misery. In truth, when its desires are fulfilled, it returns to its own place and enjoys the happiness that is the self. Similarly, in the state of deep sleep, samadhi, and fainting, and when the object desired is obtained, or the object disliked is removed. Basically, he's pointing, when I get what I want, then the mind enjoys the happiness that it is the self. When it removes an object disliked, it's also returned, because that means I want and I don't want is the same. Yeah? It's when I get rid of what I don't want, the mind subsides, the desire is subsiding. And when I get what I want, the desire subsides. So basically, the mind desires to be free of desire.
That's the essence.
Okay? So this is why it chases to fulfill its desire, because if it gets what it wants, it rests momentarily. So it is suffering so much until it rests. Because in order to get an object that I don't have, I have to put a lot of energy, and it takes two things now playing in here: time and how much I have to travel in distance, space. So the longer it takes, the more time it takes, and the more effort, distance I have to go through. In between, I'm longer discontent. In order to experience myself, it doesn't take a thought, so it doesn't take time nor space. So there's no distance to travel.
It's instant.
It's instant. All the rest might take very long time, very short time, yet in that moment, when you experience discontent or suffering or misery, misery is misery in that moment, and that's your world in that moment. So time does not really apply. The experience in that moment
Is
misery, or tension, or fear. Because if I get attached to a desire, and the reason why I get attached to a desire, because I want to fulfill it and be desireless, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I want to experience freedom of desire, because that's a glimpse of who I am. So I'm not willing to easily give up the desire, because this, I believe, would free me.
Allows you to experience the moment of non-desire.
Yes, so basically the mind, its nature is to seek the source in order to dissolve. So I get like this attached to the desire, to what I want, so it can fulfill itself, and I would be absent momentarily from the desire and experience who I am. And because it's going out and it happens unconsciously, right? When I get what I want, unconsciously the desire disappears. So what happens, I don't see clearly what happens, and I am for certain believe and experience is that it's due to the object.
Because you've identified it.
Yes. So then what would I do? Keep attaching to these desires, to the objects of the world, to be free of desire, which perpetuate desire more endlessly. And this is how confusion plays itself out. This is how confusion works.
I mean, that's really confusing for the, whatever.
Confusion is only in the mind.
Yeah, there's no such thing as confusion, it's in the mind. In the mind that, it's,
So we go back similarly in the state of deep sleep, samadhi and fainting. The mind enjoys the happiness that is the self. And also when the object desired is obtained or the object disliked is removed. The mind becomes inward turned and enjoy pure self-happiness in both situations. When I obtain what I want, when I remove what I don't want, basically the mind goes inward and enjoys pure self-happiness. Because why it goes inward? I want, I take action thinking about this. When I get what I want, I don't have a thought about it, right? What happens to a thought?
Disappears.
Subsides.
So actually we know what deep happiness is.
Of course, this is our most innate, primary experience. It's actually the only experience we have.
We just have to be aware.
It's wake up from the illusion that we are a separate entity.
Yeah.
That we are something other than who we truly are. Thus, the mind moves without rest, alternately going out of the self and returning to it. So I'll read just before. When the object desired is obtained or the object disliked is removed, the mind becomes inward, turned, and enjoy pure self-happiness. Thus, the mind moves without rest, alternately, going out of the self and returning to it. Okay? Thought appears, in, out, out, in, out, in, out, in, and what happens? Out and another one, out and another one, out, another one and another one. Because if I want something that is external, what supports it is my imagination, based on memory of being free of desire. Because in the innate most experience there is a self-remembrance which is not a thought. I know who I am deep inside. I know who I am. So when there's a recognition, suddenly I recognize that I know who I am. And it's not something new. What does it mean? I don't gain it. So when I take a shower, what did I gain?
Cleanliness.
I was, prior to being dirty, what was I? I was clean.
Yes.
So did I gain cleanliness? Or I just removed the dirt?
Just remove the dirt.
This is it. I don't gain myself. I just
Just remove
remove
the
what I'm
dirt.
not. Yeah, my primary position, I'm clean. I go out, I get dirt, I come back, I take a shower. I didn't gain cleanliness. I am clean, innate, most experience. I was clean. I just added something that got me dirty, so in the shower I remove it.
So
So
discrimination is the shower.
Discrimination, inquiry is showering. I'm removing what I'm not. So all the ideas I added on who I am Yet, when I remove the ideas, I'm not gaining who I am. I'm
Yeah.
already who I am. I'm always who I am. Prior even to time. Yes? Thus the mind moves without rest, alternately going out of the self and returning to it. And now he continues. Under the tree the shade is pleasant. Out in the open heat is scorching. A person who has been going about in the sun feels cool when he reaches the shade. Again I'll read it. Under the tree the shade is pleasant. Out in the open the heat is scorching. A person who has been going about in the sun feels cool when he reaches the shade. Someone who keeps on going from the shade into the sun and then back into the shade is a fool. It's like if I walk in the desert, it's hot, I just want to be somewhere that would be cool, shade, maybe some water. And then after some time, it's like, let's go to the next place. And then as we start going out, it's just a matter how long they say, wow, this is so hot, why did we leave this place? Let's keep going, maybe we'll find another place. Once we find another place, if we're lucky, then I was like, oh, this is so great. This is what he's talking. So he says the wise doesn't leave the shade. He doesn't leave himself. He doesn't follow the thoughts, believing that he will realize the self in the dream, in the ideas, in the desires. The mind is being supported by its own imagination. The person who has been going about in the sun feels cool when he reaches the shade. This is everyone's experience. Someone who keeps on going from the shade into the sun and back into the shade is a fool. A wise man stays permanently in the shade. Similarly, the mind of the one who knows the truth does not leave the self. The mind of the ignorant, on the contrary, revolves in the world, feeling miserable, and for a little time returns to the self to experience happiness. In fact, what is called world is only a thought. When the world disappears, i.e., when there is no thought, the mind experiences happiness, and when the world appears, it goes through misery. And the reason why he points the mind experience happiness is that the mind is just resting, just like in deep sleep. And this is basically what everyone wants. When they say, I want to go for a vacation, I just want to have some peace of mind. Or if one is really active, all they want is to rest. If one had a busy day, many calls, talked a lot, they just want, let me just rest. So basically, even not knowingly, everyone is looking for this resting, for the mind to rest. Why does it rest? Within awareness, within why?